Maybe it was $2 trillion, maybe it was more like 8. But the US Inspector General has just come out with this final report on Afghanistan, an audit, and it's not pretty. It's about America's longest war ever, where we spent maybe $2 trillion, maybe a lot more, spent more money rebuilding Afghanistan, even in today's dollars, than we did building Europe after World War II, only to have this catastrophic withdrawal. But honestly, this is kind of a strange message of hope for you. When I look at what happened in Afghanistan, I honestly think about history, because Afghanistan is known as the graveyard of empires. Historians like Herodotus from more than 2,500 years ago talk about how it was impossible to occupy Afghanistan. The British were there not once, but twice. So were the Soviets just in recent memory. But we had this idea of American exceptionalism. Led by people like Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, they thought that America could just do everything that other people couldn't do. And honestly, that Obama, even though he stayed in Afghanistan, should even put more resources towards Afghanistan. Dick Cheney said that the world's safer, more peaceful when the US is able to project its will in various places in the world. And honestly, the fact that Bush, Obama, Biden, Trump, they all stayed in Afghanistan, it shows you that this idea lived on. There was kind of this ethos from people like Condoleezza Rice, who is a brilliant woman, one of the most important people in deciding how we interact with other nations currently at Stanford. She liked to say that democracy, it's not a spectator sport. We should get involved everywhere. So now, is that what's going on in Venezuela? This is what I want to talk about. Because we thought we could go into Afghanistan with this light footprint. I mean, we go in there, Kabul, the capital, falls basically immediately. Taliban goes to Pakistan, hides out. We put in $150 billion just to create infrastructure in Afghanistan. Even $550 million on planes that we bought from Italy for them that literally never flew. They were basically broken on arrival. We junked them later for $40,000. $549 million to $40,000, zero return. We built this training center that was built so poorly it melted. We tried to get the Afghanis to plant soybeans even though their climate wasn't suited for it. This failed. Spent billions of dollars trying to build the Afghan economy and society, and it totally failed. Then we have this catastrophic withdrawal under Biden. It creates a huge humanitarian crisis there. We leave $7 billion of military equipment, 78 aircraft, planes, and helicopters, 40,000 military vehicles, 300,000 weapons now in the hands of the Taliban. And even this biometric database where we had collected things like pupil scans and biometric data on all the people who were working with us, so that we could put them into this personnel system, the most sensitive system of its kind in the country, even on their extended networks. And the Taliban gets this biometric data, which helps them actually target the people who worked with us. And we've had this grand strategy for a long time that liberal democracy is a universal value and that we can export it by force if we want to. This comes from John F. Kennedy in the 60s when we had just won World War II. We're sitting on top of the world. Kennedy gets elected and he says, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, or oppose any foe to assure the survival and success of liberty." Ronald Reagan carries this forward. We want to promote democracy because it's right and because democratic governments are less likely to become involved in wars of aggression. Condoleezza Rice said we were in the Middle East because there was a freedom deficit there. She liked to say this when she would talk about the war. And now you see there's this concept of the world order collapsing because of Trump. He released this national security strategy to say how he wanted to approach the world. And he said at the end of the Cold War, American foreign policy elites convinced themselves that permanent American domination of the entire world was in the best interest of our country. And the so-called elites, the people who think that they should run the world, talk about this as, oh, Trump is returning to the spheres of influence concept. You just pay attention to the countries around you. Yeah, that's what he's doing in Latin America. He's just looking at Latin America and America, letting the rest of the world go. I don't know, I don't see that. He's doing a lot of deals in the Middle East, working with Japan, and he's got this new idea. Some people call it transactionalism. Basically, he's saying that we should have mutual respect for the people we work with. We should not try to morally instruct them. No more going to Middle East kings and telling them they have a freedom deficit. And we generally should have a non-interference policy. And to me, when I see this, I see, okay, the U.S. strikes these Iranian nuclear facilities. He's trying to get the illegitimate leader of Venezuela out, which the Atlantic just disgracefully said, is Trump acting like a small child? Even if you don't like the guy. It's a little dishonest because you knew, because during the Biden years, there were these massive drug trafficking charges against Maduro, Iran's terrorist network working with Maduro, Russians selling bombers to Maduro. But ultimately, this stuff does not involve 900,000 people and $8 trillion, a 20-year war. What I see are these people who used to basically influence the world so much, like the Atlantic, saying, oh, Trump's dealmaker image is hitting a wall. They want to frame all the things he's doing as him just being all about himself. It's the art of the decline. And if you look at headlines, just try to even look for information on this. The coverage on this is overwhelming. It's all this kind of stuff. America's world order is collapsing. But honestly, it made me think that this so-called liberal international order, rules-based order that was based on promoting democracy everywhere, this is a product of World War II, which happened more than 80 years ago, in a totally different world, and also in a world where we weren't connected nearly as much as we are now. Maybe it's possible that the United States can make its own deal with the UK, with Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Japan, Argentina, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala. Individual agreements that are based on what the United States and this other party needs, rather than this idea of everybody meeting at the United Nations or the World Trade Organization and setting rules for the entire world. And after this thing came out and we see the final report on Afghanistan, literally $2 trillion for nothing, it actually made me hopeful. Maybe Trump abandoning the so-called liberal world order is our country learning, or at least trying to learn, something different. Because whatever this was, the people who did this, where we came from, it was not working.